Today, I'm going to be talking about team motivation. And hopefully, when I say this, you aren't overwhelmed, especially after 2020, thinking, team motivation? How am I supposed to motivate a whole team of people if I myself am kind of lost and struggling? And then I know there's also people who are super excited, gung ho, like, let me at it. How do I make everyone feel like this? So, hopefully, there's going to be a little bit in this presentation for everyone on that spectrum. So to start, I know that there's a lot that goes into team motivation and guiding and leading people and helping them feel energized and motivated. So for today's purposes, I just want to focus on three things. We're going to start off with setting expectations, then we'll talk about maintaining energy and creating a culture of purpose. So let's start with setting expectations, right? And to give an example of why this is important, let's talk a little bit about the example of, let's say, I'm sure all of you have experienced a time when you read a book and it was just, you loved it, right? It was your favorite book. And then you hear they're making a movie about it. And you are so pumped. They cast your celebrity crush as the main role. And you're so excited. You hear the critics are doing awesome things, saying it's 10 out of 10. And you even hear that they're going to add a little extra information to your favorite part of the book or to your favorite drama line in it, right? So you talk to your friend and you're like, hey, I really want to go see this movie, opening night. You got to come with me. And they're a good friend. So they say, sure, I don't really know anything about this story, but I like movies. I'll go with you. So you go and you watch the movie, right? And the curtains close or the lights come on and the movie's over. And you're like, wow, I was so disappointed. Like they cut out my favorite character in the book. They didn't even cover the last half of it. And the character they cast actually didn't even do that well. I'm so disappointed. And you turn to your friend and you're like, what did you think? I'm sorry I made you come to this. And they're like, actually, I loved it, right? It was great. I thought it was funny. There was a little bit of action. I liked the drama in it. And the difference we see here is because of expectations, right? And I'm not saying it's bad to have high expectations. Please don't misconstrue that. But if you have incorrect expectations, if you were expecting something else, if you thought they were going to talk about something else completely, or you just thought it was 10 out of 10, and then you go and it's different, that makes it really hard. And the same applies to business, right? And to everything. So let's particularly talk about setting expectations with our industry, integrative marketing. Now, unfortunately, when you say words like integrative marketing, network marketing, or MLM, a lot of times people's automatic expectations and responses are, oh, isn't that all a pyramid scheme? Or they're all just liars, they just want money. Or maybe they're on the other hand and they're like, oh, I have a cousin who does that and he does nothing and he makes so much money. It's just easy money. He doesn't even do anything, right? And so that's why it's so important for us to set expectations about what our industry really is. So, what is integrative marketing? Well, integrative marketing is a combination of the best marketing methods, okay? Direct sales, B2B, B2C, brick and mortar, social media, e-commerce, whatever you would like, right? And it's a legitimate marketing business that allows you to run your business how you want. And so you don't have to think of your own product. We do all the research for you. We've already created an awesome product. And it's just a chance for you to be able to set up, okay, how do I want to sell this? Am I going to do consultations? Do I want to sell through social media, e-commerce, right? It allows you to be creative and to have your own business your own way. And along with that, let's talk about the question, is integrative marketing a trap? Now, obviously, I do not believe it's a trap. I agreed to work for an integrative marketing company. So let's look at a little bit of the reasons why people often think it's a trap, right? So people often think it's a trap because they think that you're going to spend all this money to get started and then you don't ever make money, right? And that the product's a sham. But let's look at Soul, okay? Because we're a little bit different here. So what do we require from you to start? There's a $75 initial investment to become a specialist. And with that, you get your own site, you get the kit, you get everything you needed to start. Of course, you'll need internet access and probably a computer or a tablet or something that you can get on and see your website from. And then also, you're probably going to want about $100 to $300 to buy a package for yourself and really start taking the products and be able to grow your own product testimony, because Of course, we don't want you to be selling anything that you don't know about or that you haven't tried yourself, right? That would be dishonest. So it's really pretty small. And if we think about integrative marketing or network marketing, a big reason that people often say it's a scam is because they say, oh, everyone fails in that. No one actually ever makes money. It's just a scam. Well, let's look at traditional startups then. So granted, in the year 2019, it was actually 2019 was a pretty good year. It was before COVID hit, I was going to say. But the Small Business Administration defines a small business as one with 500 employees or less, which is most of your sole businesses, right? Especially when you first start. And the failure rate of startups in 2019 was around 90%. Pretty high, right? And that's okay. It's not because starting a small business is bad. It's just because it's hard. Starting a business is hard, and that's what you do when you start a sole business, is you really are starting your own business. But luckily, when you start with Soul, your initial investment was really small. It would be hard for you to lose money, right? And looking at initial startups, they usually take around 2 to 3 years to become profitable. So with Soul, we obviously know that isn't the case, right? We have people that can reach 15K in a month if they have the connections and they're putting the time and effort into it. So when you have this information, you're enabled with true facts, and you have the experience of Soul, as a leader, you need to use this and repeat this often to your team, because especially when you're doing these team calls and new people are joining in, a lot of them don't know what integrative marketing is, or they don't really know what they got into, right? Like, how many of you guys fully knew what this opportunity would mean to you when you started? I bet not a lot. So as a leader, your voice is so important, especially because as a beginner, you get a lot of negativity possibly from the people around you that are like, whoa, you just signed up with a network marketing company? Like, that's kind of weird. So they need your constant voice giving them these facts and empowering them by setting correct expectations. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about two of our enemies when we are dealing with team motivation. And we have two energy thieves that we're going to focus on. The first one is discouragement. And when I say discouragement, I'm going to use it to refer to more of a rapid loss of energy, and more maybe similar to disillusionment, right? And this is going to more heavily target your newer specialists. And it's defined as a loss of confidence or enthusiasm. And I added that in this industry, this is usually a result of bullying, criticism, or self-doubt. Now, unfortunately, the first two, the bullying and criticism, usually come from family and friends, right? But this isn't because your family and friends don't love you. I promise you have good family and friends, they love you. But it's because of that expectation thing, right? If most of them have that same expectation of, oh, network marketing companies are a fraud or they're a scam, it's normal for them to be a little bit wary about you starting one, just because they don't know anything about Soul, right? They don't know the culture, they don't know the people, and that's not their fault. But it's hard for new people who maybe also don't have that much experience with our culture and who we are to overcome that. So we need to be aware of that. And the second one that can cause this rapid discouragement at the beginning is self-doubt, right? They go to make their first post about Soul Naturals and they're like, oh, am I really qualified? They feel like imposter syndrome, right? They're like, I don't know enough about this. I'm not healthy enough. People are just going to laugh at me. And that is almost harder to overcome, but we need to be aware of that. And we'll talk about how to deal with that in a little, but let's first meet our second energy thief. All right, up next we have burnout. Now, if you look at these pictures, I'm sure we can all relate. There's even some days where I just feel like sitting at my desk and putting my head down because my head feels like it's on fire, right? And especially after the year of 2020. In fact, we're about to read this definition, and if you keep in mind switching out the word 2020 for burnout, some would say it fits pretty well. So let's read it. It says, burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So this is going to target your soul specialists that have been around for longer, usually, okay? And so this will get to them because, let's say, I don't know, they've been going at it for a while, they're kind of over their initial excitement, and if they don't have a system to follow, right, then they might feel like they're just wandering aimlessly for a while. And it can get hard because there's a lot to it, and they have a lot of things going on in their lives. So let's see how we can overcome this and why burnout happens. All right. Well, burnout happens when your workload is greater than your capacity. And when I say workload and capacity, those are referring to emotional, social, mental, physical, right? All those different things that we have going on in our lives, all the different requirements and stresses that we feel from on the day to day. And as well as our capacities, right? Do we have emotional intelligence? Are we physically strong? Are we okay mentally? All those different things. And so with this basic equation, we can see that if we're going to beat burnout, we either have to decrease our workload, increase our capacity, or maybe even do a little bit of both. And I know you're thinking, well, obviously, duh. If I could just decrease my workload, everything would be better. But how am I supposed to do that? So don't worry, we'll talk about it. All right, tactics for maintaining energy and beating that burnout. So we have systems as number one, right? Of course, of course, of course. This helps decrease workload as well as increase capacity, right? Because with systems, we're saving time and we're also having a training system that allows us to spread ourselves not thinner, but I guess spread ourselves less thin, but reach the same area. And then it also helps with discouragement and burnout, right? Because discouragement, it helps if you have a system to plug someone in within that first little while that they sign up, then they have immediately a support system. They immediately know their next step, and they have a system where they're plugged into people that are motivating them and being positive with them. And that's what they need to beat that little discouragement that can come at first. All right, then we're going to talk about nutrition and fitness, okay? This is just factual. This is scientific. If you aren't taking care of your body, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not going outside for 30 minutes a day, walking around, moving, you're not going to feel good. And you're not going to have the energy to tackle the things you need to do during the day. And of course, at Soul, we have some little helpers, right? Our herbs and our adaptogens. So make sure that your Soul specialists are taking what they sell, that they don't forget their protocols, that they are taking what's good for them so that they're enabled to do this. All right, and let's look at the third one. It's teaching self-development. All right, and so this is so important. I know we've talked about it a lot, but let's look at some of the ways that we can teach self-development and go through self-development ourselves as well. All right, well, first off, you have to make a plan, okay? If you don't have a plan for doing the things, something to hold you to the resolutions that you have and that you're making for yourself, it's not going to work, okay? And if you need an example of how to make a plan to accomplish your goals, not to be hyping myself up, but I did just write a blog on this on our new blog, and it's called Setting and Achieving Goals in the Personal Development section. So if you want to take a look at that, you can. We can also listen to podcasts, audiobooks, all of those things, and that's a great one for me. Like I do it while I'm working out or while I'm driving to work. It's something that's so easy to fit into your schedule. And along with that is reading books. Maybe you're someone that needs to see it visually, right? Or researching. There's so much good information out there that honestly the hardest part is finding the true information. And lastly, have an accountability buddy, okay, or a goal buddy. This is someone you can check in with. And even if you had like a diary that you write down every day, like, hey, I'm working on patience this week, right? And then you write, this is how it went today. Or you just write 3 things that went well that day, That's a great way to hold yourself accountable. Now, let me tell you something else about self-development and stress. So with stress, we all have it. Allison told us it's not that bad, right? And there's actually studies that show your mindset towards stress is what determines whether or not you suffer from the negative effects of stress physically and mentally. So people that looked at stress as a threat, as they saw it as something that was just overcoming and looming over them, right? Those were the people that experienced the negative physical and mental effects of stress. Whereas those who viewed it as a challenge, that felt themselves getting stressed or nervous, but they told themselves consciously, this is my body preparing me to take on this challenge, and I can do it. Those were the ones who actually didn't have any of the negative effects from stress. And so it's so important, like Jordan said, you are contagious, right? So it's if you consciously try to talk about things and act in a way that shows that you are able to take on the challenges that come and you're not so worried about them, that will spread like wildfire within your group and help them maintain energy and maintain confidence in themselves. Be the example. Let your voice set the tone. All right. And lastly, I'd like to talk about purpose. Okay. Here at Soul, we're not just a company here to make money. Okay. Even though you can do that here at Soul, we all start with a pretty great purpose. Whether that be the health, you're really interested in the scientific background behind it, or let's say you're really worried about helping your family with their health and with their economics. Or what about on the end, where you're just worried about helping others in general, right? You just like mentoring people and helping them. So these purposes are really noble and there are whys, and we cannot forget them. It's a great motivator. A lot of times we look towards extrinsic rewards, right, for motivation, and really the intrinsic ones are the cheapest, but also lots of times the best. So to describe this, I am going to tell a quick story about the power of stories. All right. There was this group of lawyers, right? And if you don't know what the AARP is, it's a group, an organization that helps elderly citizens have resources and fill their needs. And so they had this group, the AARP had this group of citizens in this area that needed legal help, but didn't have a lot of monetary resources. So they reach out to this group of lawyers and they say, hey, they were writing a letter petitioning for them to help these elderly people. And they said, hey, we have this group of elderly people who needs your help. We understand that your hourly rate is very high. Could you lower it to $30 an hour for these elderly people? They send the letter off, right? The lawyers get it, they open it, and they read it, and they send their answer back. The AARP gets their response, opens it. They said no, they rejected them, okay? And so the AARP, instead of giving up, thought, well, what can we do? $30 an hour isn't enough, but we don't have more funds to pay them any more than that. Let's see. I know what we'll do. We'll ask them to do it for $0 an hour, for free. So they write down this letter, the exact same letter, but they just, they say, hey, we need you to do it for free. Would you please consider it's these elderly people that need help and they don't have the resources to pay for it. Send their letter off. The lawyers get it, open it up, read it, send it back. AARP gets it, and it was an overwhelming yes. The lawyers were glad to do it. They said, send them on over. We would love to help you out. So what changed? I mean, if we're thinking better something than nothing, shouldn't they have done it for $30 an hour instead of $0 an hour? But if we know a little bit more about how people think, we all have stories about ourselves, right? And perceptions of ourselves. So when the AARP wrote their letter to the lawyers asking them to do it for $30 an hour, what they caused the lawyers to question in themselves and to ask themselves was, am I the kind of person who works for $30 an hour? And of course, they said no. They said, hey, I went to law school. I have student loans. I worked my way up in the world of law. I no longer am the type of person that works for $30 an hour. Easy no. So when the AARP switched their question to ask them to do it for free, they caused the lawyers to ask themselves, am I the person who donates my time to help those in need, right? Because as they took out the monetary reward, it was just, are you the kind of person that helps out those in need? And of course, we'd all like to answer yes to that question. No one wants to say no to themselves for that question, right? And so that's why they changed, and that's why they said, yes, of course we will. And so with that in mind, we need to know that we are creating a culture in everything that we do in our teams, right? Everything we talk about, everything we focus on, that's creating a culture. And so when you reach out to your specialists or to your members or whoever it is, you need to talk to them and ask yourself, before I talk to them, this material that I'm presenting or the way that I'm presenting it in, what does it ask them to ask about themselves, right? And so just be conscious of this purpose, right? We all have a good purpose here at Soul, and we can help you accomplish it, and you can help each other accomplish it. But let your purpose be your center and your culture. So I hope you've learned a little bit of something to do with team motivation. And that's about all I have for you. Thank you very much.